From the Figure 4 Online Studios in beautiful Bothell, Washington, exclusively at WrestlingObserver.com, you're listening to The Brian and Vinny Show with your hosts, Brian Alvarez and Big Vinny V.
And Craig. Well, if you're hearing this, we're on the air. It's Brian, Vinny, and Craig Show, everybody.
So Nitro was doing a Taboo Tuesday gimmick, where fans could dial a 900 line to vote for one heel and one babyface to be in the main event.
You call the shots, it was called.
Yeah, and one of the options to for the babyface to be in the main event of Nitro was Dave Sullivan. I suspect he got 0 votes.
Well, it was funny because, like, this was so long ago that the interactive stuff they did involved a landline telephone.
That's right.
As opposed to the internet.
Right.
You had to spend 99 cents to call their 900 line, and you were going to get to choose one man out of the babyface locker room, and then you would choose one man out of the heel locker room. And they pretty much told you throughout the show there was no ifs, ands, or buts. They wanted you to choose Sting versus Flair.
Yeah, the other options were not appealing.
Bischoff flat out told you what to vote for.
Yes.
He told you how to spend your 99 cents on their product. He was so excited.
Bischoff
I will talk.
Great.
I will talk more about these locker rooms here in a moment.
All right. They also announced that Randy Savage was in the building, but he had not been cleared to wrestle, and then he never appeared.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until right now. Opening match: Cobra versus the Giant.
Fake
Oh,
Sting.
God help us all with that music. I just imagine dogs barking everywhere.
See, what the hell? I don't remember. Was that the Cobra's actual music, or did they get rid of his song and just add in?
I'm pretty sure his music was in fact Morse code.
Okay.
So Morse
it was
code
so
played.
loud in the speakers, though.
It did sound like it had been put back in.
I thought it was a glitch.
It hurt my ears. Like,
I thought it might be an Amber Alert that they just beeped over my WWE network.
Yeah.
I thought there was breaking news that WWE got good.
So Giant grabbed the ring announcer Dave Penzer, hoisted him to the sky, and said, "Declare this a title match." And he did so. I should have mentioned, by the way, Giant came out wearing the title belt around his waist like a champion should.
Dude, this guy already had great championship poise.
Yeah.
He came out with that belt around his waist, and it was like, whoa, that dude's the champ. And ain't nobody going to beat that guy.
Yeah, keep in mind, this was his second major television match ever.
That's right.
It's astounding. So
It wasn't much of a match.
It was not much of a match. He grabbed him by the neck and chokeslammed him in 1 in 10 seconds. Baron Corbin is jealous of this match time. And that was it. So we went to the red locker room.
As much as I don't like Mongo as a commentator, he very calmly explained that Bobby had not seen anything that fast since his honeymoon.
That's right.
And his delivery was so good that I laughed. I laughed at Mongo.
You know what they say about blind squirrels and nuts. So, Gene Oakland was in the red locker room, which is Carney for the heels. There's all the guys in there, like it does Ric Flair and I don't know 8 or 9 other guys, and they're all just all at once shouting and raving, "Vote for me! Oh, kick his ass!" Ah, bah, bah.
Oh my God!
Meanwhile, Shark and Scott Norton, because they've been feuding, and only they remember this, they just took it upon themselves to start fighting.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
I wish I could have got these 900 line voting stats because who the fuck voted for the Blue Bloods? You know what I mean?
Blue Bloods were back there. Shark and Scott and Norton. Who else was in this room? I forget. But there was, of course, Ric Flair. And then they went to the blue locker room, which is all the baby faces, and it was the same thing. There was Sting and no one who could ever possibly get a vote. The Nasty Boys, like you're going to pick Nasty Boy A or B for a singles main event match?
Sure.
Or
Alex Wright.
Alex Wright, Mr. JL.
Alex Wright. At least Mr. JL was saying, vote for me. But, like, Alex Wright's there in the background, and you can just tell he don't give a shit.
No.
He knows there's no one voting for him.
Yes.
Why bother? He's just standing there. And Sting, of course, is begging for Ric Flair. And all of these men were just yelling.
Yes. It was awesome.
And the funny thing is, you see this chair bouncing around in the background. It's like, what is their folding chair? And it's Hacksaw walking back and forth for no other good reason, holding a chair above his head.
Yes.
And just walking with it.
The thing that disturbed me the most about it is you did mention Dave Sullivan being there.
Yeah.
It's Dave Sullivan and a rabbit.
Right.
Have you ever had rabbits? I have.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. The last thing a fucking rabbit wants is to be in a room with a bunch of giant screaming men.
I'm sure that's true.
You would need a prescription to keep him that calm.
That's true.
The only thing that really disturbed me was Alex Wright's one earring. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Looked very effeminate.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
At a World War III promo, I can't wait for that pay-per-view.
Yeah.
3 rings, 60 men. Biggest battle royal of all time.
Three rings, 3 giants.
That's right.
That's right. A giant in each ring.
Yep.
That was the gimmick.
So I love this. Wrestlers should be madmen. And this is just a bunch of madmen.
And Alex Wright.
Speaking
and,
of.
And the Blue Bloods. Okay. I don't even know what to say about this next bit. They went to Venice Beach, California,
Oh, God, please, no.
where there was a man on rollerblades. Craig, help me out. Was this a bass or a guitar?
This was a guitar.
It was a guitar, okay.
He was wearing a turban, it seemed.
He's something wacky in his head and rollerblades and playing a guitar.
He was wearing a little speaker that he was jamming on his guitar, and obviously the sound was coming out of the
The amp?
quote-unquote amp
All right.
that took probably D batteries.
That's not a very
I
good
love
amp.
that Craig's takeaway from this is that's horrible musical equipment.
Absolutely.
That's what Craig got from this
Dude,
segment.
if they've been doing a radio show, I've been ranting about something myself. I don't blame him.
He was wearing some bad Ray-Bans, and
So
anyway, go ahead.
there's this guy.
Yeah.
Surrounding them is a crowd of 20 to 30.
He's singing about Hulk Hogan, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
In a very horrible Jimi Hendrix-esque style.
Yeah. So they're surrounded by, I don't know, 20 or 30, let's call them normal people.
Sure.
It's a bit of a stretch. But
Yes, actually, everybody surrounding them was looking at them
Yes.
like they were completely out of their minds.
Yes. And then the last 3 men, Hulk Hogan, dressed head to toe in black on the beach.
No mustache.
No mustache still. It's been a month now. Randy Savage, dressed head to toe in black on the beach. And in the middle,
Homeless man?
a random hobo.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
Babbling.
all 3 of them. As best I could tell. And I can't tell very well, so I may be wrong on this. But as best I can tell, the takeaway from all this babbling was Hogan would stay here on the beach with the hobo, I guess where it was safe, while Randy Savage returned to Nitro and determined who was friend and who was foe.
So Hogan was playing Vladimir Putin. That's what you're saying.
Kinda.
He sent Randy he gave him a task.
This was bad.
Actually,
I thought this was terrible.
Oh, it was. It was
all I could
terribly
think about-
awesome.
All I could think about watching this was, it's no wonder that Hogan turned heel, like, at all.
Well, it wasn't just this, but it's been like the last 9 Nitros. Every time Hogan comes on the screen, it's just like looking at him with modern eyes. He is a 1980s comic book hero
Walking cartoon.
who all of a sudden it's 1995 and he's doing the same exact cartoon gimmick. And all those kids that grew up with Hulk Hogan in the 80s, now they're teenagers or early 20s, and they're looking at this guy going, look at this dumb shit. And he was here doing this promo at the beginning, just classic Hulk Hogan, talking about a big, stinky, wart-infested giant.
That's right.
And I'm like, oh my God, you're killing yourself here, dude. And he was.
He was.
What did you write, Sammy?
I just wrote, this feels like modern-day WWE booking.
Kind of.
I don't know.
This would have fit right in on Monday Night Raw.
This would have been better than most of them on Monday Night Raw.
Well,
Significantly
the show
better
as
than
a
most of
whole
Monday
would
Night Raw.
have, definitely. I don't know about this segment.
I mean, it was at least it was energetic.
My friends were watching Nitro with me, and they walked out of the room during this segment.
Well, they walked out at the wrong time.
Yeah. Kevin Sullivan wrestled the Renegade.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Wrestled, I use that term loosely.
Yeah.
I got to talk about this
All
here.
right, go ahead.
All I got to say is that this Renegade, God bless him, was absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. And his Ultimate Warrior ripoff gimmick is actually worse watching it today than it was at the time. And the thing was, he made the Ultimate Warrior look like a world-class worker.
Yes, you have
as
the exact...
much as people bury the Ultimate Warrior, it's not until you watch the Renegade that you realize how much talent and charisma Jim Hellwig actually had to be the Ultimate Warrior. Yeah. Like, you want to make fun of the Warrior like he was a shitty worker and all he did was shake the ropes and shit like that. Well, why don't you go be the Warrior? Because it's not as easy as it looks, clearly, as we learned here in this. And the funny thing is, Renegade actually does a cartwheel at one point.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful cartwheel.
Yes.
Which proves to you also that it takes much more than athleticism to be a good professional wrestler.
He ran in and he was going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And when you're bad at something, you don't do it quickly because it just makes it look even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy.
It is mind-boggling that they went out in search of an Ultimate Warrior clone.
Got this
and
guy.
came with a guy who is not just he is that much worse.
It's they threw a rock at Gold's Gym and it hit this guy. All right, you're the guy.
Oh yeah,
it's entirely possible.
I also like that Kevin Sullivan's the booker, and the show starts, and it's one Sullivan guy after another coming out and beating the shit out of somebody.
Of course.
I never really was a watcher of WCW, so this was the first time I ever saw Renegade, and it really was kind of like nothing special other than they felt they buried him. But the finish, in hindsight, with what Jimmy Hart was saying to him, was really hard to watch for me.
Yeah.
In hindsight.
I don't even remember what Jimmy Hart said. What did he say?
Jimmy Hart poured a beer in his face. He wiped his makeup
it's
off.
over. Forget about it.
Your
career is over. Yeah. It was...
Said, you're not the Renegade. You're just plain old Rick.
Yeah, plain old Rick ended up, unfortunately, ending his own life.
Yeah. I think, if I remember right, and it's been 20 years, but I think they actually did try bringing him back as non-makeup Renegade, just a guy, and obviously it didn't work out too good.
Well, we'll find out because we're going to keep watching.
They went back to the red locker room. This was so great. Okay, it's the same gimmick. All the heels campaign for a match, and really it's going to be the Ric Flair show, and everyone knows it. So it starts, first of all, from the get-go, Norton and Shark are like, you want to go outside? Yeah, all right. And they leave to fight. And now, so they leave.
That hurt their voting.
I'm sure it did. Bet. I don't know if one of them did it or if it's a coincidence, but when they leave, the lights go out.
Yeah.
Like someone hit the clapper and the lights are just gone. So Gene starts to talk about it, and Ric Flair has the mic, and ain't no stopping Ric Flair.
No.
In light or in darkness, it don't matter. I'm the nature boy. I will take care of any man in front of me. And a few seconds go by, and the lights come back on, and Ric Flair does not miss a beat. Like the Lord above, he says, I have brought the light back. This segment is why Ric Flair is the best wrestler ever.
Well, that in the main event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, God, this is great. Chris Benoit
had a great little... Who did that intentionally?
Yes.
Gene's very good as well. Gene was one of those guys.
Gene is so ridiculously under.
One of the things that was so much better about wrestling back in the day was because everything wasn't scripted. When something went wrong, the dudes just improvised.
Yeah.
Gene was a master. It didn't matter what happened. He just kept going.
Unless
Can you imagine if, like, Pretty Young Devin in NXT, the lights would have gone out, what a disaster. They'd have to retape that thing 9 times.
Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero.
Oh man,
yeah.
You know what's funny is
everything to say about it. Go ahead.
I was talking to Dave off the air on Monday, and you got to just separate Benoit from what he did. We just gotta. If we're gonna review this show, we gotta just this is just him as a wrestler. Forget whatever he did. This guy was amazing. You know what I mean?
So good.
It's painful. It's painful to speak of this because of what he did, but the reality is he was like one of the greatest workers of all time. Like maybe one of the 5 greatest workers there has ever been. And like I said last time we watched a Benoit match, I had not watched a Benoit match since I think I watched the Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit Royal Rumble match that was 5 stars. I think I watched that a little, it was maybe 2007, 2008 or something like that. It was after he'd done his deal. And because I remember we watched it because I remembered it had a 5-star rating, and we decided to go back for some reason and watch it again to see if it was really a 5-star match. And it was one of those matches for the first 3 quarters of the match, you're just going, how the hell did we give this match 5 stars? Like, really good match, but it's not that good. And then by the time it's over, you're like, that may have been 6 stars right there.
Yeah.
That match was so good. So I hadn't watched a Benoit match in at least 5-6 years. And boy, you go back and watch these matches and you just completely forget what a great professional wrestler the dude was. It's painful to have to bring this up, but it's a fact. This guy was an amazing worker.
Listening to Jericho's podcast actually just today, and he says he will never, ever go back and watch a Benoit match.
Yeah.
And even with the stuff that he was in, because they were talking about him, he's getting tweets that they should put Benoit in the Hall of Fame. And he's like, absolutely not.
Oh, my
course
God.
not.
Come on, you idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
There's a lot of idiocy out there.
Yeah.
But as a wrestling match, this was incredible.
Might as well give away a pay-per-view for free while you're at it. Oh, wait, never mind.
That's right.
So, also, as long as we're saying nice things about Chris Benoit, what a mullet on this man.
I don't know if we're necessarily saying nice things. It's a fact here.
There's a fact he has a sweet mullet. So, yes, you cannot watch a match with these men. First of all, Benoit especially, you're going to be uncomfortable the whole time. But everything the announcers say is going to sound wrong. Mm-hmm. For example, Mongo noted that every time he met Eddie Guerrero, his heart got a little bit bigger.
I did not notice that. Oh
Yeah, that sucks. So they had like the best average match you ever saw with a great finish. Benoit, they have this. I don't want to say the place was dead, but they were at maybe a scale of 1 to 10. They were a 6 or a 7 for most of this match. And they start having a brawl in the apron. They shoot right up to 10. And then Benoit goes to suplex him back in, and Eddie falls on top. And Benoit's feet are under the ropes, but the ref counts 3 anyway. So Benoit, of course, is protesting. Mongo's laughing, and Heenan loses his mind and says, "That's not fair. That man was screwed. His feet were under the ropes. He was robbed." And Bischoff just cackles and says, "We don't have time for slow-mo."
Yeah. We got to go back to this babyface locker room.
Yes, they did.
One other thing about this Benoit match here. I don't want to read Benoit's mind, God forbid.
No.
But when you watch this guy wrestle, and this is not like praise of Chris Benoit, this is actually the opposite. Every single thing, he never flinched. Like, if you're going to kick this fucker right in the head, he was just going to take it.
Yeah.
He was gonna get hit in the head. If he had to deliver a suplex off the top rope and it required him landing on his own head, who gives a shit? He was going to do it. He was going to land on his own head. And at the same time, when you see him, like, this is the second match in a row that he's powerbombed Eddie half to death.
Oh, my God.
And what does he do? I can't read his mind, but when I watch him wrestle, the impression I got of Chris Benoit was he was a guy that he took this very, very, very seriously. And, if he was going to get a concussion, who gives a shit? He was going to have a great match no matter what. It didn't matter if he got his bell rung. He was going to go out the next night. It didn't matter if he did something crazy and it was going to cause him to land on his head or his neck or whatever. He was just going to do it. And at the same time, in his mind, I'm going to give you a fucking power bomb. I ain't going to kill you. But you're going to get up. You're going to be fine. It may hurt really bad, but you know what? You're going to be okay. And that's the style of match that he worked. And not good. Not good. I don't want to say that he, didn't take care of his opponents, because he did. But at the same time, he had a very physical way of working. And he wasn't going to take any bullshit. He wasn't going to take any, I don't want to take this move, or, go light, or don't chop me too hard. He was going to beat the shit out of you, and he expected you to beat the shit out of him, and he didn't want to hear any bitching about it. That's just the way he was going to work. And unfortunately, well, obviously we know how that turned out. Don't wrestle like that, everybody.
What I loved about this match is it played off of the match they had. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but you remember the finish of that match was the dragon suplex.
That's right.
So Benoit goes for the dragon suplex, but Eddie escapes and then ends up getting draped over the top rope, and that led to the suplex back in, but it was the finish. So it played off of that, and also he whipped out that powerbomb yet again. And you said that was the last one we saw was the worst powerbomb you've ever seen in your life.
This was a close second.
This was neck and neck.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, it was not all flowers and butterflies with Chris Benoit's work. There was a lot of really bad stuff about it. But he was a hell of a worker.
God, he was good.
I want to ask you guys something. So this is about the second match they've had on Nitro. And it looks to me there's going to be a lot of future matches with the same pairings. And I'm thinking, what makes this different than current WWE booking? We always complain that...
I was going to get to that in the main event, in fact.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up, but let's table it for a few minutes.
Okay.
Shivani was in the blue locker room with all the crazy baby faces. Sting's begging fans to vote for him, and he says to Ric Flair, quote, "I don't like you. I hate you."
Awesome.
I'm glad we clarified that. There's an ad for Fall Brawl available on something called Home Video Cassette.
Craig, does your son know what VHS is?
You know what? I think he stumbled upon some in the garage.
That sounds wrong.
Marked ECW.
Sounds so wrong. Oh, boy. Sorry.
Bischoff finally announced that Sting versus Flair was going to be the main event, and he also noted it was not a surprise. So, yes, Sting versus Ric Flair. So, what I thought watching this match, as our friend Sammy here noted, when I reviewed SmackDown, all I did was list stats of how often we've seen these rematches and how much I'm tired of them. I could watch Sting and Ric Flair wrestle each other every week to the end of time.
True.
And not get bored. Now, part of that, of course, is Ric Flair's great. Duh. But I was watching this, trying to figure out... And by the way, largely the same match. Maybe not move for move every single time, but...
May have been, actually.
At some point...
This is Flair and Sting.
Flair's going to throw some chops. Sting's going to no-sell him. Sting's going to beat his chest. Flair's going to cry and run away. Flair's going to do the flop in the corner and get clotheslined on the outside. There will be a lot of press slams. A lot of chops, no-sold. Eventually a long figure four spot.
Uh-huh.
So it is like the same thing every time, but great every time. And the key difference is, as much as it was the same stuff every time, it never felt scripted, because it wasn't. It felt like something that was organically evolving before my eyes.
A contest.
Well, yeah, but I knew at some point I was going to see a figure four, but I didn't necessarily know when. I knew at some point I was going to see a bunch of chops. I didn't know when. And they would do these things at the right time for that match in front of that crowd.
Well, let me add something to that, Vinny. The difference between this and what we see today is this. We saw Eddie Guerrero face Chris Benoit, and Chris Benoit won that first match. So they have a rematch here, and this time Eddie Guerrero beats Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit had his feet on the rope, so he's got something to bitch about. But Eddie Guerrero won the match, and afterwards they announce Eddie Guerrero will now be getting a championship match against Johnny B. Bad for the television title.
Next week.
Meanwhile, yes, we're watching Ric Flair versus Sting again here, but guess what? When the match ended, and Vinny can explain the match, but the point is there was an angle after the match, leading to something that is going to happen on next week's show. The problem with nowadays is not only do we see these same matches over and over, but there's never any consequence to any of it. We watched Dean Ambrose versus Cesaro. I've seen it now twice. None of it had shit to do with anything. They had a Halloween street fight, which what's his face won, Dean Ambrose. Mm-hmm. Then they have another match on Raw that Dean Ambrose just won. I mean, how many times do we see a match like 9 straight times, and none of it has to do with anything? It's not like a guy wins and then he's in line for a championship match, or it's not like there's a big angle afterwards or anything like that. These matches, yeah, we've seen them a couple of times, but they're all playing into another storyline. The Guerrero win is setting him up for a championship match. The Flair versus Sting match is an angle afterwards. It's leading to something else. It's not just seeing the same match over and over with nothing on the line, no point to it. It's just doing a match on television. That is the big difference.
So the finish here was quite great. They're going back and forth, and Sting finally hits a superplex, he hits the Scorpion, and Ric Flair submits. He's been defeated. And ref calls the bell, but Sting won't let go of the hold.
Which is great.
Because he hates this motherfucker.
He hates this man.
As noted, I don't like you, I hate you.
Which is even more funny because the announcers can't figure out why he won't let go. I'm like, do you watch your own fucking show?
Yeah. So many refs come out to plead with him to let go of the hold. Lex Luger jumped the gun, came out early, and had to pretend he was not in the ring. And Bischoff was... The crowd was popping for Luger, and Bischoff had to lie about security holding him back.
Bischoff was furious after this show.
I bet he was. So Mr. JL and Eddie Guerrero come out there. They're all pleading with Sting to let go of the hold. Finally, Hacksaw Duggan comes out and just pulls Sting off, which I'm sure by that point in the Scorpion, I'm sure Sting was relieved to not have to stand in in a squat pose for however long. So they finally pull Sting away. They're dragging halfway up the ramp, and halfway up he stops and he runs back and he puts Flair back in the hold again. They're all begging him to let go, and he won't listen to any of them. And then Luger hits the ring, and he gets in Sting's face, and he very calmly shakes his head no and says, "That's enough." Sting immediately lets go, and Sting, the evil bastard who turned on Randy Savage just the week prior and has been siding with Jimmy Hart against Hulk Hogan, Sting leaves with this guy.
Yeah.
Not any of the baby faces. Intrigue.
Do you know the story of this Nitro, by the way?
Nothing about it.
They did a 2-hour taping. They taped 2 Nitros back to back. And I have no idea why, except that it's WCW. But they taped the shows in reverse order.
Excellent.
So all of the angles that they shot on this show, they were leading to an angle that they'd already filmed in the first hour.
Didn't TNA do that at one time as well?
Well, they always tape everything out of order.
Okay.
But it's rare to do one taping for 2 shows. But for whatever reason, I guess it was just due to time. Like, since they had to go live, they taped the other show first and then went live. But it was, like, completely ridiculous. Like, when they come out at the end of the show here to announce that the Giant has been stripped, this was well over an hour after the Giant had come out with no belt doing this whole thing about how, you know what I mean? So, it's just crazy.
The best thing in this match was the figure 4 spot. Flair finally gets a figure 4 on Sting. And, of course, he's close to the ropes, so he's using the ropes. And the ref, of course, is oblivious to everything going on. Flair goes to the bottom rope first and doesn't get caught. Then he goes to the second rope. And meanwhile, Sting, of course, is in the hold. And as Flair is going for the top rope, Sting drags him to the middle of the ring. And Flair is dejected because he can't hit that top rope.
He can't cheat anymore.
And then Sting sits up and pounds his chest and a tribal scream, and then rolls over the figure 4. It was absolutely tremendous.
I'd like to say one thing I really noticed about this match that really stuck out to me. I've been a lifelong WWE fan. Never could get into WCW. Always felt one of the issues I had was the way that the announcers and the crowd was mic'd. Couldn't really hear the crowd. Felt like I was in a small room with Bischoff. And when this match started,
that's the Gold Club.
When this match, the intro started for this match, all those thoughts went away. The crowd was electrifying. Before they both came out, this crowd was on their feet, super excited for this just match that these guys are having again, pretty much. I don't know how else to say it. I loved the match, except I did not like the 3 times repeat of Sting's exact same spot for his comeback spot. It was,
that's Ric Flair calling every Ric Flair match there's ever been.
I guess. That was the only thing I wasn't into, but that match was awesome, and I am enjoying watching Nitro. I hate to say it.
I know, it's the best part of my week.
It is great. So then we had the main event segment.
Main event segment was Gene Okerlund interviewing Jimmy Hart, Kevin Sullivan, and the Giant.
By the way, one more thing about that last segment. How novel. A cliffhanger leading to next week's show.
Yes, episodic television. Amazing.
Fuck. It's always funny when it's Sunday night and I'm doing a radio show with Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. And we sit there and we're like, what's on Raw tomorrow? I have no idea. I have no idea what's on Raw tomorrow. And then Monday I get the email from somebody there who was like, yeah, the script's not done yet. I'm like, fuck. Is it that hard to just like end the show saying, here's what's coming up next week?
You don't need to have all 3 hours. Give us one match.
Give us a main event.
Yeah.
For the love of God. And by the way, WWE was plugging all day that Raw was going to be all about John Cena picking his team for the Survivor Series.
He wasn't there.
He's not even there. You idiots.
So we have mentioned this many times, but among the things WCW did right was we want the Giant to look like a giant. Let's surround him with the shortest men we can find.
Absolutely.
Jimmy Hart, Kevin Sullivan, and Gene Okerlund, and a 14-foot human being in the middle of them all.
You want to know a funny story about the Giant size here? Exactly as you said. They get this tall guy, and they surround him with short people. And the Giant comes out here, and he's just destroying small men, right?
Yep.
In 1998, when Vince McMahon signed the Giant away from WCW, he had this big speech about how, goddamn, these fuckers in WCW, they don't know how to push a Giant. I'm going to book this guy like Andre the Giant. You know, Andre's always in a box. You almost never see him. What does he do with the Big Show? He beats him in 3 weeks. Steve Austin beats him like just another guy.
Yeah.
And then he's just another dude on the roster.
And then he tag teamed with The Undertaker.
The funny thing is, these guys did a great job with this Giant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they're gloating about their win. Here is where they revealed that Jimmy Hart, as Hogan's manager, had the legal right and went behind Hogan's back and put in a clause in the contract that he could, in fact, lose the title via DQ.
I thought my network got stuck because it sounded like Jimmy Hart said the exact same thing 3 times.
He repeated the phrase "power of attorney." That was the hot buzzword they wanted out there. It was a little. Well, it was at least it was down to one segment, but it was something like listening to Michael Cole say "building momentum." So they're all celebrating not just their win, but how they made Hogan look like a fool. And then a lawyer appeared.
Nick Ambrose.
Lambros.
Oh, okay.
Who was he was their legit lawyer.
Really?
Yeah.
So
One of them.
he explained that the contract was legal and binding. However, the Giant was not the world champion. He had a statement from Commissioner Bockwinkel saying that due to the dubious nature of the DQ, they were going to hold the belt up. And as he's reading this is awesome. He's got like an actual printout paper reading the statement, and all the heels and Gene are trying to huddle around and read over his shoulder. Yeah. And the Giant peers over these little men. He's looking straight down, and I don't know if he did this on purpose, but he scratched his head like an ape.
I always loved when somebody came to Gene with a statement, and Gene, without missing a beat, stops what he's doing, and he pulls his glasses out of his jacket. Yeah. He puts them on so he can make sure he can read it. God, Gene was so good.
He was amazing.
He is so great.
Absolutely amazing. So they announced that the Giant is being stripped of his belt, and the belt will be awarded to the winner of the 60-man Battle Royal at World War III. All the heels rant and rave about how cruel and unfair and tragic life is. And finally, Sullivan pulls himself together and says, fine, whatever, take the belt. Giant will just win the damn Battle Royal and take it back there.
That's right.
And then they cut to the announcers, and they're plugging the Battle Royal. They're promising injuries and careers being over and a new champion. And Sting and Flair was amazing and awesome. There's nothing else on the show you really need to see.
Let's do this Nitro show.
So I've never actually read the episode previews, but I couldn't help but notice that, first of all, the image was a man who I would later learn was Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
Decked all in black, wielding a sword. And I look over on the preview, and it says, quote, on this episode of WC Monday Nitro, armed with a sword, Hulk Hogan steps further into the darkness to challenge the Dungeon of Doom. What the fuck?
Oh, little did you know, my man.
Then, so yes, the show starts, and the announcers introduce things, and they go to a pre-taped Hulk Hogan promo. So what they did was, this was in November, so all the Halloween stuff was probably on sale at the party supply store. So they went out and bought all the cheap Halloween stuff, graveyards or gravestones and swords and masks and whatever the hell else they could find. Stacked it all up, played like scary music, and Hulk Hogan's in this black mask wielding a sword cutting a promo. But he's still doing a Hulk Hogan voice, you know? It's the Hulkster through and through.
This is the wackiest thing. I think, ironically, he may have been the Count of Monte Cristo.
Possibly. I guess. I don't know. So he said Randy Savage would bring him the head of Meng on a silver platter. He did not know if he could trust Sting, because Sting had left last week's show with Lex Luger, but he vowed to find that out in the future. I was just bewildered by this.
He mentioned the lightness, which I guess is the opposite of the darkness.
I suppose. I've always thought it was just the light.
Is very, I mean, I can't even explain this. He was just all out of his mind, dressed up in a Zorro mask and like a cape, and he had a sword or something. I had no idea what was going on. Like, I had no idea what was happening.
It was, and it sounds, I'm sure this is on WrestleCrap somewhere. And the thing is, as weird and bizarre as it wasn't bad enough or weird enough or bizarre enough to be funny. It was just weird.
Yeah, you got to go back, everybody, and watch this to fully... I can't do it justice. I can't even begin to explain what happened. It was just the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And then Bobby Heenan, after seeing this, predicted Hogan would be the first man eliminated in the World War III triple ring 60-man battle royal.
Who's going to eliminate the guy with the sword?
It's a very unlikely prediction.
Yeah. Randy Savage versus Meng. Savage came out through the crowd to attack Meng from behind. Most of the match was just Meng chopping Savage in the corner. And finally, Savage was able to bonk Meng into Jimmy Hart, and he hit the big elbow for the win. And the rest of the crew ran out and attacked Savage, and Luger appeared and started wrapping his arm around the post.
I loved when Sullivan's coming out with Meng at the beginning of the match, and Sullivan is ranting into the camera. And what is he saying? He's talking about how the World War III pay-per-view is going to be the biggest event of all time. Bigger, he says, than the Super Bowl. He was wrong.
Yeah.
Typical Savage match.
It was nothing.
He sold and sold and sold, and then got the quick elbow and pin. It's funny with Savage, like, I watched him during this match, and I just thought, I would have loved to have had a match with Randy Savage.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, aside from the elbow, in his later years, his hips were going bad, and so he would just drop all of his weight on you with his elbow and virtually kill you. But in this period, he just looked, he looked great, he worked great, but he looked like he was just light as a feather. And Meng looked great. This looked like just the easiest match with these two guys. And it was funny because this was 1995. This was almost 1996. This was November 1995. And the difference in Randy Savage between early 1996 and 1999, 3 short years, startling. And it all changed when he decided, I've got to get as big and as muscular as possible. And I think that some older guys figure that that's a way to make you feel young again. And maybe it does, but god damn does it accelerate your aging. He just looked like a completely different person in 1999. It was crazy how young he looked here in 1996 compared to 3 years later. So there you go. And by the way, when he got his arm destroyed, Luger destroyed his arm, which was not taped, although it was taped the week prior, and it really was injured.
Oh. Well, there you go.
And I like Luger's pinstripe Zubaz.
I have thought about this in like 15 years. I have a cousin who worked at a shoe store in Atlanta, and Luger came in with his kids one day. He was wearing like Zubaz and a polo shirt and a big gold medallion.
That sounds like Luger.
I thought about that. Seriously, this has been 20 years.
He may have been wearing that when he came to the building here.
He might have.
He just took off the medallion.
Kensuke Sasaki versus Chris Benoit.
What a weird match.
Yes, it was. They only had about 2 minutes, so they went 1,000,000 miles an hour. So they're doing this. They're talking about Kensuke Sasaki is getting a U.S. Championship title match later this very same week. And I swear to God, before they were done saying that sentence, Benoit hits 2 Germans and a dragon suplex and pins him.
Well,
And then as he's on his way out, Bischoff says, oh yeah, Chris Benoit, the newest member of the Four Horsemen. This was not the best Nitro I ever saw.
We may have missed some information here and there.
Yes. That seems relevant.
Yeah, they botched a spot early, but they covered it up by getting into a fight.
Yes.
It's a great way to cover up for a botched spot.
You know how we've talked about the Benoit thing a lot, but it's hard to compliment him. But the first time I went back and tried to see if I was able to watch a Benoit match, I was YouTube surfing in the pre-network days, and I saw Chris Benoit versus Sting from Nitro. I thought, oh, what the hell? Let's see if I can watch this now. And the best part of it was actually a screw-up. Benoit goes to whip Sting on the ropes, and Sting does not hear the spot, and so he holds on. And Benoit doesn't miss a beat. It just looks like Sting is, fighting back and making a comeback. So Benoit hits 3 kicks to the gut, calls the spot again, and then they go do it.
Yeah.
Like the screw-up, Benoit's screw-ups were better than most guys' matches.
That is, in fact, correct.
Yeah.
The idea, by the way, of rolling Germans into a dragon suplex as a finisher is crazy. Like a finisher that you've got to do against men of all sizes every match.
Yes.
Use a super kick, everybody.
Sleepers.
Make life easy for yourself.
Sleepers are good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Johnny B. Bad versus Eddie Guerrero. I thought this was awesome.
Yeah, let me mention something before you say that.
All right.
Hulk Hogan lately has been doing a lot of interviews, and he talks about his bad back and how if he could, he would not change anything about his career except for one thing. He would stop doing the leg drop.
And the leg drop.
He goes, my gimmick was that I had the largest arms in the world. Why didn't I just use a sleeper hold? I thought about it, and it's like, well, he's right, but like, can you imagine Hulk Hogan back in the day where his Hulk up ended with a sleeper?
He could have done the X-Bomber.
Sure.
That would have been a good finish.
I don't know why he didn't just use the leg drop. What'd you have to finish it up? The big boot.
Oh, there.
What do you have to finish it up with the leg drop for? Just big boot him and pin him.
I don't know.
How's that any worse than an FU?
I don't know.
Or dropping a bent leg on somebody's chest?
I don't know.
Anyway.
So, Johnny B. Bad versus Eddie Guerrero. Like I say, I thought this match was awesome. So they're doing Johnny's the TV champion, and they're doing a time limit draw. So the first 5 minutes is similar to a primitive version of what a Ring of Honor match would be now. Lots of action, lots of lucha. It's all very, very clean wrestling. And after about 5 minutes of this, they're getting a little more tired. They're letting their guard down, and Bads gets Eddie a little off balance, and then Johnny B. Bad, the former Golden Gloves boxer, goes back to his roots and he starts throwing punches. And Eddie ducks one, but then Bad hits a combo to the jaw. Eddie drops like he's been killed. The ref steps in and says, no, closed fist punches. That's illegal. And he pushes Johnny B. the Bad to the corner. And Johnny waits, and the ref goes to make sure Eddie's okay. And Eddie recovers a bit. And then this is, frankly, is what will become Latino Heat. He fires up, and he and Johnny have a giant brawl. And they're rolling on the floor. They're going back and forth on top, punching each other. And after a long time, the referee is able to separate them. And then after they've had their brawl, they've gotten their emotions worked out, they go back to wrestling. And it's their facial expressions now, they're a little more angry, but they are following the rules. They're having a competitive, athletic encounter. And went back and forth for a while, and eventually they did the time limit draw, and they were still pissed off, and a few minutes went by, and Eddie cooled down, and he raised Johnny's hand. But I thought this was just great. I thought it told a great, very simple story, but everything they did made sense.
I was just amazed at the people, how much they loved Johnny B. Bad. They went crazy for him. It was funny in 2014 looking back, and the people are going crazy for Johnny B. Bad, and they don't give a shit about Eddie Guerrero.
Well, yeah. When you put it that way, yes.
The only thing I didn't like about it was they announced the 2-minute mark, and it killed the finish.
Yeah.
And it was actually only a 9-minute match. They lied about the 10-minute time limit. And that was also funny because the idea in 2014 of a TV match with a 10-minute time limit, there would be 3 draws every Monday.
Yeah. Well, in that era, yes.
This era.
There are not 3 10-minute matches on Raw.
Oh, come on.
Well, you know what? Let me think.
The tag matches always go 12 minutes.
Go back.
Main events are always more than 10 minutes.
You're right. Let's see. They announced that Hulk Hogan was calling out Sting for next week. They didn't show Hogan doing this. They just said it was happening.
Yeah. What was the story with Saturday night's main event? In the sense that they did the preview, and was it supposed to be wrestling on a spaceship or a flying saucer?
You mean there's the Saturday Night Show?
There's all this mechanical rigmarole.
That was their set. I don't know why it was their set. Maybe just because they were on Universal Studios and they had a spare part laying around to make it.
The guys were beamed up like in Star Trek whenever their graphic appeared on the screen.
Well, even in the actual show, it's the great big sliding door and steam everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know what it was supposed to be.
Airlock. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Gene Okerlund interviewed Hart, Sullivan, and the Giant. Sullivan said he had been thinking of ways to end Hulk Hogan for 10 years. In WrestleMania 1, Kevin Sullivan was somewhere in Florida saying, how can I put a stop to this man?
That's right, yeah, he'd been thinking about it for a long time.
Yes. And Giant vowed to end Hulkamania at World War III, win the Battle Royal, and be world champion forever. And he did none of these things.
Fortunately not. I was brought back to my childhood during Sullivan's promo, where he just spent a lot of time talking about how this is the World Heavyweight Championship. It's the most important thing in this business. It's all anybody wants is this belt. And I just felt like a little kid again, because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
I grew up where the belt was the fucking thing that you wanted to have. And it's interesting, too, because when I was a kid, you couldn't just go get a belt. When I started the Youth Wrestling Federation in 92, holy Christ, to get a belt, I had to go down to Mr. T's Trophies and have him make a bunch of brass plates. And then I had to go to a saddle maker. I'm not making this up. I went to a place by the, it was in, where's the Evergreen State Fair? Monroe. I had to go all the way to Monroe to a saddle maker who cut the leather, and then they attached these brass plates that I got at Mr. T's Trophy Store. That's how you had to make a belt. The closest thing was you could maybe get like a kind of a metal and plastic and pleather belt through like Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. But like if you wanted a belt when I was a kid, you had to win a belt. You couldn't just go to Wildcat Belts and buy it. You had to win it. They didn't sell it at the merchandise stand unless it was just like a cheap plastic replica. When I was a kid, like, man, the idea of winning a belt. And this belt was the most important thing in the world. The only way you'd ever get it is to become a wrestler and win it. Nowadays, it's just bullshit.
It's one more thing you have to get in your luggage.
Yeah. Sad.
Everything about wrestling today is sad. Main event was Sting versus Dean Malenko. So the whole point of this was we're going to have Sting go over in the end, but up to that point, we're going to do everything we can to make Dean Malenko look awesome. That was their idea. Nobody alerted Steve McMichael. They're having this match, and Michael is going off about how Malenko posed no threat to Sting because he is small.
Oh, God, this idiot.
And Bischoff says, well, he starts talking about watching Dan Gable whip men's asses bigger than him. And then right before they go to commercial, Bob Mongo says, sometimes my football team lost games, but we never whine like these wrestlers do. What in the hell?
He's an idiot.
Why did they hire him, and why did it take them so long? Actually, he was never fired. They took him off the mic and put him in the ring.
Because he was Steve McMichael, dude.
Is he that close friends with Bischoff?
He was Steve McMichael. He was Mongo of the Chicago Bears. You got to put him on commentary.
It was 10 years before Nitro started.
The funniest thing is just watching a pro wrestling announcer, Bischoff putting over small men. He goes, yeah, I saw Dan Gable eat these big men for lunch. Mm-hmm. And Mongo's trying to kill the gimmick. I was just like, you idiot.
So they come back from break, and during the commercial, obviously they smartened Mongo up. He's going out of his way to talk about how Malenko has proven him wrong. So anyway, eventually Malenko takes most of the match, but he goes for a cloverleaf, and Sting reverses it to a cradle for the win, and that was that.
When this match started, I was like, what? Sting versus Dean Malenko? What a weird match. And then they went in there and they had a hell of a match.
Yes.
Dean even gave him this sweet German suplex, dropped him right on his shoulders, like a high-level German.
Yes.
I was like, man, this is a good match. And then Malenko's pissed afterwards because he got out-wrestled by Sting.
Yeah, he was defeated, and it mattered to him.
Mattered to me, too, back then.
Everything mattered. I'm sad now.
Well, not everything.
Hulk Hogan with a sword mattered, damn it.
No, it didn't.
So Oakland closes the show by interviewing Sting in the ring. He brings up Hogan's challenge.
Now, keep in mind, by the way, as I mentioned last week, this was taped before last week's show, which is why fans were completely baffled and quiet when Gene is talking about how Sting walked out on Hogan, which, of course, had not happened. And the fans who stuck around saw it happen an hour later.
I see.
Yeah.
I've forgotten about that. So, Sting says he did not know what Hogan's problem was. He didn't want to fight, but he had let it slide when Hogan had called him a little dog waiting in the porch. In fact, he was the big dog around these parts. He had a long list of men he had beaten. He was not running away from this fight, and he was ready to fight Hogan next week. And the announcers killed time for a while, and that was that.
Yahoo!
That was Nitro.
I did like at the end, Gene threw it back to the announcers, and he made sure to mention that Heenan was a con man. Gene was great. He just said whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Nitro, everybody. It was fine. There was some good stuff on the show. It is not as novel as it was 11 episodes ago. But we're not going to give up.
Still better than Raw.
We're going to keep going for a while. It's a real-life Monday Night War because we're the Nitro episodes are they're exactly 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Same week. This was the week of November 11th, this Nitro, and next week we'll watch the week of November 18th. And we're comparing it to Raw yet again. Let's compare the ratings while we're at it. See what show's doing the better rating. Let's move on to Nitro.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's.
On that note,
The announcers noted that the main event of this show was Hulk Hogan versus Sting, and it should be a pay-per-view main event, but they were giving it away for free.
let's talk a little history. Since they were doing Sting versus Hulk Hogan, this was the show where WWF booked Shawn Michaels getting enziguri'd, collapsing, and allegedly almost dying. That went head-to-head with this show here.
My very young daughter
Oh, yes.
said a prayer for Mr. Michaels.
You called me and left a message on the YWF hotline alerting
right.
me to this fact back in the day. And for those of you that are young, in 1995, this ended up being a post-concussion syndrome angle, which tells you that all of the bullshit about how we did not understand the dangers of concussions until 2006 was, in fact, horseshit. And WCW did win this Monday Night War 2.5 to 2.3. Think about that. Shawn Michaels collapsing on live TV got a 2.3, and Hulk Hogan versus Sting for the first time ever did a 2.5. All that hot shotting for a regular rating. Some things never change.
Yeah. Bobby Heenan noted he would be cheering for Sting. Then he hoped right after the match, Sting fell down the stairs and hurt himself.
I just love that the announcers hype up this show and they all say their piece, and then they all pump their fists and they go, "Let's go!" And they're all excited.
Just like this show.
Yeah.
Scott Norton versus Shark.
Bobby Heenan sounded exactly like you, Vinny, when he was recapping this match. So excited to see two huge dudes pounding on each other. And he almost used those exact words.
So Shark threw Norton around with a big belly-to-belly. And I'm not saying that because his belly was big.
Although it was.
The belly-to-belly was big. I guess you'd call it either way. So Shark worked him over for a bit. And then Norton just stopped selling. And he hit a body slam, and then he won.
Yes.
And Shark kicked out a 3.1 and began a protest. I don't know if it was a bad finish or a botched finish, but...
No, that was a finish.
Yeah.
And Shark vowed to get him next time.
You're underselling this body slam.
It was very impressive.
Oh, my
I probably am.
gosh.
But, in Vinny's defense, imagine the meeting backstage. You beat me up for a while. And then, I'll slam you. 1, 2, 3.
It was a massive power
All right,
slam.
brother. Deal.
See out there.
That's what that's the spot
Probably.
that they planned.
This was a great match. The Shark was an amazing worker.
And the Shark was very...
Oh my
I
gosh.
underrated him until I've gone back in time.
He reminds me of Richie.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he was a badass.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about Richie, right?
Both of them.
Either of them. Gene Okerlund interviewed Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy Hart. He dubbed Jimmy Hart the original Benedict Arnold.
Yes.
I believe
Prior to the original.
I believe Benedict Arnold would be the original Benedict Arnold. Unless there was another Benedict Arnold prior to that I'm not aware of.
But then he would have been the original, not
guess.
Jimmy Hart.
Either way, I'm certain it was not Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy tried to stir the pot between Sting and Hogan. Here is how Jimmy Hart tried to enrage Sting. He says, Sting, Hulk Hogan once got you a spot on Thunder in Paradise. But then when Hogan was invited for a spot on Baywatch, he did not call you, he called Randy Savage.
Hey, the man speaks the truth.
It's all factually true.
And Jimmy even had video footage
Yes.
of Randy Savage on the set with the Baywatch girls. I love that Kevin Sullivan was out there. He is the booker at the time. And apparently he is also the promoter.
Of course.
As he builds up World War III as the biggest show, ironically, of all time, until Survivor Series 2014.
Yeah, that's all he did. He said his men would beat up Hulk in the Battle Royal. Disco Inferno came out to dance.
And Hawk is CD.
And Eddie Guerrero came out to wrestle, and so Disco left.
They build this as Eddie Guerrero versus Ric Flair. And so Flair comes out, and he's in a suit, and he's got Pillman with him. And he alerts us that Brian Pillman is going to do the match instead. And he cuts this promo. And the promo is essentially exactly what everybody in the world was thinking at the time. You people thought I was going to come out here and wrestle Eddie Guerrero? That was his speech. And it was true.
He said Eddie was not worthy to wrestle him, so he's going to wrestle Pillman instead. Which, by the way, doesn't that bury Pillman?
Well, it does.
Just making sure.
But Pillman is young with stars in his eyes.
I guess.
I love that they said Eddie had trained a full week to wrestle Ric Flair.
Yes.
I can only imagine this week of training.
Watch the chop, brother. So I love, the match began, it was Brian Pillman versus Eddie Guerrero, and Brian Pillman's in the Four Horsemen. And so Eddie Guerrero, to get under his skin, he holds up 4 fingers, and then he pinches his nose.
Yeah.
Because they stink.
Yeah.
The 1990s were an innocent time.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a question, actually, that's been bothering me since these shows originally aired. Pillman here, and Benoit used to do the same thing. Why do they have black tights with a red crotch? Or vice versa? Does
I don't
anyone
know.
have an answer?
Obviously, the crotch is reinforced so it doesn't tear.
Sure.
Why it was a different color, I have no idea.
I just figured it was a lighter material so you get a lot of air down there. You know what I mean? Boys need to breathe.
That's not why.
Oh. Well, they didn't have underarms.
That's a great idea. Let's make the crotch out of a lighter material.
No. Just a breathable material.
There was no
They're
Under Armour in
tights.
1995.
They're all breathable. I love that Bischoff is pushing World War III like crazy. He's like, 3 rings, never before seen, 60 men. 1 man is going to become the champion of the world.
3 giants.
3 giants. He's going to have to beat 59 other men. And Bobby's going on and on about how this man will earn millions of dollars by winning this battle royal.
Yes.
And all I could think was, I can't wait to watch this main event. Forget the Survivor Series.
Yeah.
They made me excited for the World War III 3-man battle royal.
It was no good.
It was not.
Well, next week, everybody, we got to watch Nitro in the 3-ring battle royal. Got to watch the pay-per-view main event. But it's funny because I don't even know what else is on the pay-per-view.
I
cares?
don't think they plugged one match.
I don't think they had one other match for the World War III pay-per-view here on the Go Home Show. I presume this is the Go Home Show, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. So this match was awesome. As disappointed as I was to see Ric Flair leave, Brian Pillman and Eddie Guerrero had a great match. Went back and forth the whole way, and then after Eddie had a big dive to the outside, a brain buster, and then a frog splash for the win.
So to recap, in this match, Eddie Guerrero used a brain buster as a setup move
Yes.
in a match that followed a bout where the finish was a body slam.
Right.
Yes.
Funny how that works.
That's just makes sense. I was listening to Steve Austin, his podcast with Flair from a few weeks ago, and Austin stated that Brian Pillman threw one of the hardest chops in wrestling, and I was like, Pillman? And then I watched this match. Holy God, he threw.
He could throw a chop.
Oh, yes.
Guerrero's chest was bleeding.
Yeah.
It was tremendous.
Pillman
It
was
a
not
great
afraid to
match.
mix it up.
Dude, I used to chop people till they bled.
Oh,
And I
I
was
know.
160 pounds.
I understand that, but
It's
there
all
is
technique.
as Austin stated, there's a way to throw a chop to make it sound really loud and not hurt so bad. Yeah, I know.
For pussies.
Ric Flair said that.
This ain't ballet.
Showed clips of the Dungeon and Doom and Lex Luger attacking Randy Savage and injuring his arm.
What did Ric Flair say? Say this again. There's a way to throw them without hurting somebody.
There's a way to make it sound like you're killing somebody without
Far be it
actually
from
killing
me
somebody.
to criticize Ric Flair, but
Yes,
that
far be
guy
it from you.
chopped the shit out of people till they bled. And every time somebody tried to chop Ric Flair, he turned his shoulder into it.
Attaboy.
Shaking my head. Go on, Vinny.
Big Bubba versus Road Warrior Hawk.
This was hilariously awful.
First of all, this is where it occurred to me, boy, the body count on this show is high.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes. So, Bubba wrestled in slacks and a shirt.
Yes, thank God.
Well, yes, but they were not like gimmicked wrestling pants that looked like slacks. These were off-the-rack slacks. Mm-hmm. So he went in there, and for the finish, there was going to be a foreign object. And so, to stash this object, he put the gimmick in the pants pocket.
Yes.
If you've ever worn slacks in your life, you know they're not, secure.
No, they're not.
The object fell out immediately.
Yeah. Twice.
And he had to pretend to. Well, he didn't pretend. He put it back in his pocket, and we all were supposed to pretend it didn't happen, and we didn't see it.
But nobody alerted Mongo.
Nope. Mongo went, hey, look at that.
He's got something in his pocket.
You can see it on replays at the end.
Should have put it in his upper shirt pocket. Would have been less obvious.
There are a million places he could have put it. Should have
Behind
had
his ear.
Carried in his teeth the entire match.
The highlight of this match was Mongo. After alerting us that this man had a gimmick in his pocket. Eric Bischoff is alerting us throughout the show. Don't turn the channel.
That's right.
You need to be watching Nitro. Mm-hmm. This is the Super Bowl of wrestling, he said. And Mongo deadpan says, why would anyone change the channel? In the middle of Hawk versus Big Bubba. During a spot, mind you, where I think they botched a spot, but they were both down on the mat doing nothing. This sucked. Except for the finish.
So, on that note.
Yeah, the finish is great.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose. Bubba pulls out the object, which is, I don't know, a roll of quarters or something.
Yes.
And also a large, fat roll of tape.
It looked like a cigar.
Might have been.
Looked like anyway.
So he stands in the middle of the ring and begins to tape his fist shut with the object inside.
A great way to hide the object.
The referee does not see this.
No.
Bubba then hits the ropes. Because it's not enough to hit a guy in the face with a weapon. You must run at him and hit him in the face with a weapon. He hits the ropes, and there is Hacksaw Jim Duggan to trip the man. And Bubba falls down, and his face lands on his own fist.
Uh-huh.
And he is knocked out cold.
That is the finish.
And then Hawk pinned him.
That's right.
That's it.
That's what happened.
The boss man fell on his own gimmick.
Yes.
And was pinned. This was god awful.
That was tremendous. The finish is so good.
If you say so.
I laughed, as Brian would say, uproariously.
Main event, as we noted, Sting versus Hulk Hogan.
Oh, my God. This match.
I love this match.
Oh, fuck. First off, they're billing this as a pay-per-view quality Super Bowl of wrestling main event. First time ever between Hulk Hogan and Sting. And I think these guys went in the back and Hogan just goes, let's call in the ring, brother. And he goes out there and they just do the worst chain wrestling you've ever seen.
That's true.
There's headlocks.
There was a point.
There's chin locks.
Yeah.
There's a cross arm breaker that Hogan just lets go of.
Yeah, that happened.
Just a goofy, terrible grappling match.
Early on.
That nobody cared about.
Yeah. Sting hits a dropkick. And Hogan took a backwards bump over the top rope to the floor.
That was at least impressive.
I thought, you know what? That was really good. Way to go, Hulk. You don't get enough credit for your actual wrestling. And I swear to God, 2 minutes later, he did the slowest rolling armbar. I literally cannot fathom, because when you do this move, at one point you do a somersault, then gravity will take you down. Not Hulk. He was defying gravities. He rolled over slowly.
You know what's funny about that spot was he's holding on to Sting's arm. And I've seen Hogan do this move before. And for some reason, when he grabbed Sting's arm, I knew he was going to do this move. And all I can conclude was that he had not done it in so long that he wasn't quite sure
that actually is possible.
how to do it.
He may have forgot.
because he set it up, and I thought he was going to apply it in a certain way, but then he started going another way, and he managed to pull it off, but it was extraordinarily slow. I think he just wasn't sure he knew exactly how to do it and decided he was just going to try it anyway. Because God knows he tried a lot of shit in this match. It didn't work.
You know that volcano in Hawaii where lava is oozing towards houses?
Mm-hmm.
That's the speed Hogan was moving with here.
Yeah. Did you notice, by the way, he was wearing red cowboy boots.
Uh-huh.
And they were not resold cowboy boots. These were cowboy boots with a heel and everything.
Yeah.
What, Hogan's going to kick you?
I'm just saying, those are awful slick to be running around in.
Well,
When did he run?
Well,
you mean walk around
maybe
and
that's what
fall down and miss
slowed him
spots?
down.
So we're actually glossing over some important details of the entrance here, or the opening.
His Monte Cristo outfit?
Sting came out and was nearly burned to death by his own pyro, which is a very WCW thing to do. He even noted in the camera, that was too close. Then Savage comes out, and at least they did a distraction opening, not a finish. Randy Savage comes out of the ramp, Sting's leading up the ramp, and Hulk Hogan comes through the crowd. Now, many years ago, although many years after this aired, I forget why, but I was rewatching this with my buddy Sean. And Sean notes that what Hulk Hogan had here was black pants, red cowboy boots, a black shirt, and a Zorro mask to hide his identity.
Right.
So no one would recognize Hulk Hogan.
Black do-rag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was why he was wearing this?
I guess. Why else
had
would
to-
you wear a mask?
You had to come through the crowd, brother. You could have...
I thought he was just trying to look intimidating.
I guess that's possible.
I don't know why he was wearing that mask.
Yeah,
He wore it when he was backstage in that segment last week, when he was being Zorro.
that's right. Craig, did you watch that?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts of Hogan and his sword?
It was dumb.
All right.
Thank you.
Enough said.
I don't know. I thought there'd be something profound. All right.
Well, that was pretty profound.
So, as much as Bryan's buries this match, the fact is, when Hulk hit the axe bomber for a near fall and then went for the leg drop, he misses the leg drop. Grown men leapt to their feet.
Yes.
Well, they were into the finish. I will give you that.
Yeah.
But the rest of this match was terrible.
I thought Hogan worked really hard in this match.
Clearly, you have low standards for the Hulkster.
Absolutely. Have you seen him work?
Funny thing is, I'm actually in the middle of you two. I thought it was just a very average match with one hysterically bad armbar. So, Sting puts him in the Scorpion, and Hogan is in pain, and Savage is encouraging him to fight on, and then the Dungeon of Doom hit the ring and attacked everyone for the DQ. And
I
Giant
was watching Raw.
came out and was going to chokeslam both dudes, but Savage hit him with a chair. And Giant no-sold that. Poor Savage with his bad arm had to take a chokeslam here. And then Sting and Hulk using a chair together knocked the Giant out of the ring. It took both of the top two babyfaces and a chair to get rid of him. And they went to break. And they came back. Sullivan and Hart were going after Heenan at the announce desk. I don't know why. And Bischoff and Mongo yelled at them, and they left, and the show ended.
Wow. I don't know. I was very disappointed in the main event. I thought they might try.
Did you watch this before or after Raw?
After.
I watched it before. Maybe try that next week.
And I'll like the main event better.
Maybe.
Highly unlikely.
You
Because
want-
I hated Raw. I should have been grading on quite a curve here.
Maybe.
Yeah, I thought this bout sucked. Crowd hated Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You could see the trouble coming.
The funny thing in the match itself, when Sting had him in the Scorpion Deathlock, Hogan's trying to get to the ropes and he's reaching out. He's yelling, "Help me, Macho Man. Help me." And he's reaching and reaching. Just the comedy of
How
him
campy it was.
Absolutely. It was ridiculous.
You know what should have happened when he was asking for help is a bunny should have come down
And humped him.
and jumped on the apron and distracted him. And then humped him.
And then
Yes, Vinny?
No, this is the absurdity of it all.
Well, it's not that absurd because, as Dave pointed out, a couple of weeks prior to this, the Yeti was humping Hulk Hogan.
it's true.
Which, by the way, whatever happened to the Yeti?
He will be in the Battle Royal.
I can't wait.
I can confirm that. Oh, I bet you can't.
He's one of the Giants.
Wow. Yeah, they did a hell of a job building that up on the show that there was going to be a giant in every ring. I don't think they mentioned it a single time.
I think one time, very quickly in passing, the words one-man gang came out. Apparently he's one of the Giants.
One of the Giants? It's Giant, the Yeti, and is there not another Giant?
No.
Wow.
That's why they brought in one-man gang.
Shit.
Who's the tallest, biggest guy we can find?
There's got to be one more, right, Craig?
Drawing a complete blank.
Maybe Giant Gonzalez got into the country.
I don't know. I wasn't at the border.
Who cares? We'll find out next week.
That's right.
All right, everybody. On the show next week, we're going to review the main event of the World War III pay-per-view, and then we will review Nitro number 13 or whatever. Lucky number 13, I believe it is. Is that right, Craig?
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
I'll go by the date. People know use dates are close by file. Everyone, it's the Nitro after World War III.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yeah.
Can we confirm that is that World War III is the following week? Do we know that for sure?
Pretty sure.
But want me to check? The date of this show was November 20th, 1995.
All right, so this should have been November 26th. It would have to be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All righty. WCW World War III 1995 was on November 26th.
All right.
There you go.
All righty. So there you go.
So we're going to watch a 60-man, 3-ring, 3-giant battle royal next week.
For the championship.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have
Battle royals are so much fun to watch, too.
Yes, Vinny?
this is right because the date says 95. Okay, they have the 96 picture up for the 95 results. The main event goes a half hour.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Right.
Let's talk about World War III.
Must we?
Yes, Greg, I saw your tweet. You're not a fan of this show.
No.
This was so much better than everything on Raw.
To be fair, we only watched the Battle Royal, and I was told that the actual pay-per-view itself was a great pay-per-view.
But I didn't want to invest 3 more hours.
No.
So I watched the Hogan promo, and then I watched World War III, and 30 seconds in, I was confused.
Confused? What the hell was confusing about it? It is a 3-ring battle royal with 60 men.
And on my
the last
screen,
man standing wins.
And on my screen, I had 3 boxes to watch.
Yep.
1 for each ring.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that sucked.
And then the Yeti went out. I didn't even see him go in.
Can someone explain why the Yeti is suddenly a samurai?
This is an important question.
That's what I couldn't get.
He went from being a mummy to a ninja. And their only comment on this was, he must have thawed out. And by the way, neither samurais nor mummies are Yetis. Do they know what a Yeti is when they pick this name?
Apparently not.
There's no way.
All right, so let's go down.
Let's start with the Hogan promo. Hilarious. The whole point of this promo was that the Observer was wrong because they claimed that Savage had a legitimate injury.
Yes.
Hogan claimed that Savage was perfect.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that on every previous Nitro, Randy Savage had been selling an arm injury, nor the fact that he sold an arm injury in 2 matches on this show, one of which was a finish.
Not to mention, he had his arm completely bandaged, not only on
Like
this
a mummy,
show,
in fact.
but on the Nitro following.
That's right. Hogan also said that this rag sheet was like a dinosaur compared to the internet.
His exact words
Showed
were...
him.
CompuServe.
His exact words were...
There was a CompuServe commercial prior to this.
Yes. The internet's got all the scoops. He said this. Hulk Hogan said this.
Well, you know what? He was a visionary.
Apparently.
But at the time, I'm not sure how many scoops we had on CompuServe.
Now, did he actually burn an Observer?
He burned some paper, but it was not an Observer.
I didn't think
Because
So-
there was no writing on this paper,
No, there
so
was
I
not.
knew for sure it was not an Observer.
What has become legendary over the past 2 decades.
Before you go any further, Vinny, let me explain this to Craig. Do you know that back in the day, prior to 1991, Dave used a typewriter
Yes.
to do the Observer.
Sure.
So he would type everything out, and then they would be printed.
He's a madman.
And sometimes it would all be typed out, and they were about to go to press, and he would get some extra news. And so he would take a pen, and he would scribble in the margins and in the address label all of the extra news. So the idea that there would ever be a blank sheet of paper in the Observer is preposterous. Go ahead, Vinny.
So yes, the observe this line. He it started with him taking off the black gear he'd been wearing to reveal the red and yellow gear.
Right.
And
They had an open flame.
yeah, this is
in
what
the
I'm getting
arena.
at. In front of him, there is a steel can or a tin can or a large metal receptacle, and he tears off the bandana and his black shirt, and he throws them into this can, and it doesn't quite get all the way in. So Sting reaches over to make sure that all the clothing gets into the can. Mm-hmm. And seconds after he pulls his hand away, the can explodes.
Yeah.
A fireball erupts. They nearly blew off Sting's hand. This does not get enough attention, nor does the fact that at this point, the fire went out of control. Hogan's ranting on about the Observer and Savage's arm and the Dungeon of Doom. Meanwhile, Sting is looking at the fire thinking, this is bad news.
And meanwhile, Randy Savage is right next to them with fringe everywhere,
Yes.
paying no attention to the open flame.
No.
He's got his arms extended, and all of his feathers are right over this flame. I expected him to burst into flames at any moment.
So there was acrid gray smoke filling the screen.
How do you know it was acrid? Come on.
Sting is looking back and forth like, is someone going to do something about this? They hand him a bottle of water. He attempts to put it out. Finally, they got under some kind of control. Sting is still waving smoke away. I laughed so hard at this, and not for the reasons that have become famous.
It was amazing.
I can only assume, it's clear that Hogan was doing whatever the hell he wanted, but I figured he would at least let people know, hey, I'm going to bring some pyro up on the stage to burn something. Mm-hmm. No, Hogan rigged up an exploding trash can somehow, or paid the 18 to do it or something, and he ignited this small bomb live on pay-per-view, and nearly burned Sting.
I do have some experience with clothing and lighters. Back in the late 80s when the girls wore stretch pants made of spandex.
Don't they do that today?
Well, yes.
They're called yoga pants.
Right. But we were going to see a band. The band was called Dangerous Toys. I lit a cigarette because I used to smoke. Yes. And thought it would be funny if I
He's madly typing away.
if I took this lighter and placed it under my buddy's girlfriend's backside. That thing went up like a tinderbox, and I had to put it out quickly
Why did you do this?
because I was stupid.
That's the stupidest thing you've ever done.
No,
Oh,
there's way more than that.
please tell me the young lady was all right.
Yeah, she was fine. She did have to change her clothes before we left.
I was just going to say Dangerous Toys on the Shocker soundtrack did an excellent cover of Alice Cooper's No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It was a double bill, Dangerous Toys, and another band called Junkyard. It's a great show.
Wow. Anyway, there was a 3-ring battle royal on this show.
So I skipped ahead to that part then, after the Hogan promo. I was horrified when the video package began and there were still 50 minutes left in the show. Mm-hmm. It was a long video package. It explained everything to new viewers, which is very good. So do you know how they've been advertising 3 giants?
Yep.
They explained the 3 giants were the Giant,
That's a good one.
the
That's
Yeti,
a good giant.
the Yeti, and Hulk Hogan,
Aha.
because he is a giant in the wrestling industry.
Wow.
So who didn't show up?
They were all there.
Presumably, Brian has been telling me they were trying to get Giant Gonzalez.
Yes. That was the original
But-
Yeti.
Yeah.
Even without him, One Man Gang is right there.
Yeah. He's a big man.
One Man Gang was not a giant in this industry.
He fits a giant better than Hulk Hogan does.
And Brian, since you wrote The Death of WCW, why the ninja costume?
I don't know. I don't know everything. I have no idea.
Just out of bandages?
Dude, it doesn't matter how I could talk to everybody in the world, and nobody still is going to know why they did half this bullshit.
I like how Craig throws out the idea they ran out of bandages, so they grabbed whatever was lying around, and what was lying around was a ninja costume to fit a 7'2" man.
Yeah.
I figured he brought his gear with him from
His gear!
wherever. I don't know. The super ninja.
He's a foot taller than me. I can assure you he has a hard time finding clothes.
And
So the guys come out
and yet there was a ninja
completely at
costume.
random.
Yes. The entrances by themselves were amazing.
Completely at random.
They're not in alphabetical order.
Randy Savage is coming in after Buddy Lee Parker.
Yeah.
And then following Randy Savage is Jumpin' Joey Maggs.
I did not write down all the names. I wrote down all the names that made me laugh. And in doing so, I realized, like, Super Assassin number 2 came out. And then about 5 minutes later, I was Super Assassin number 1. There was Mike Winner, Pez Watley, Barrio Brother Ricky, at least 2 Armstrongs, Barrio Brother Fidel, I think Mark Starr. Somewhere in here was a guy I have never heard of before or since. I believe they called him Big Train Bart. So
Yeah.
it was actually funny because they obviously did not do 60 entrances. They played some music. Gary Michael Capetta read off a random list of names, and I was just
It was
stunned.
not random. These men had to go backstage and get in a line.
Yes.
And then every single name had to be written down on a piece of paper.
Yes.
And they had to make sure that when they came out, nobody switched places in line.
Yes.
Now, the most amazing thing is that this was WCW, and nobody switched places.
They lined up like school
Nobody
children.
even switched places as a rib.
They went 60 for 60.
Yeah.
All the names right.
And I was thinking about it. I was like, can you imagine if one guy got out of order? How fucked up this would have been.
Had to take a leak and
Because you know that there's no way that Dave Penzer would have been able to keep up if one guy would have gotten out of the line. And it is actually, to me, looking back now, as a WCW historian, I need to rewrite the book now. This was a bigger miracle than the fact that they didn't fuck up Goldberg. This may have been the biggest miracle in the history of this company, that they managed to get all 60 of these men to come out in the proper order. And then there's all these men in the ring. There's 3 rings with 60 men in them. And in the middle of the main ring is Michael Buffer.
Yes.
And Michael Buffer
So happy you brought
says,
this up.
in the most solemn manner possible, "Welcome to World War III."
Now, we just talked about how amazing it was.
What?
We just talked about how amazing it was they got all 60 names correct. And you notice they did not let Michael Buffer touch that. They had Penzer or Capetta or whoever was there.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
Michael Buffer doing 60 names. Now, they then go to Michael Buffer to do his spiel, and his very first line, he botches the tagline. 3 rings, 60 men, 3 rings. He had one job. So finally, he said, "Let's get ready to rumble," and a bunch of pyro went off, and the battle royal started. And they had the 3 rings, and they cut to a very, very wide shot, and 60 men started to fight. And I imagine, like, if you
This looked like World War III.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like a beehive from very far away. You could see there was action going on,
there was a
but
den of activity.
nothing more distinct than that.
Yes.
Then they went to a split screen, or 3 split screens actually, with one ring in each picture.
Oh, it was one split screen with 3 screens.
Okay, yeah, but I'm not sure this actually helped or hurt.
It hurt.
Badly.
Oh my God. They had a split screen. You couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And worse, they had split announcers, all of whom were randomly screaming. Everybody in the world was screaming during this moment. It was exactly like World War III. The fans were screaming. All of the wrestlers were screaming. And every time they cut to an announcer, he was screaming. And then it would scream to another announcer who would also be screaming. This was the most hilarious train wreck. And the funny thing was, 10 minutes in, there was the announcement that 31 men remain. And I was like, 31 fucking men are left after 10 minutes? But then I realized they got rid of 29 men.
Yes.
There were a lot of men in this battle royal. Ironically, the first one out was Mike Winner.
I believe he was followed immediately by the Yeti.
The Yeti was next.
I'm not sure because they missed the Yeti's elimination.
He may have just fallen out.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure.
Lex Luger, the smartest man in the match, spent at least 2/3 of it on the floor. Just not getting involved with any of that mess. There was a lot of action. Mark Starr, we talked about him. A bunch of guys started beating up Hogan, including, as Heenan told us, there's Boss Man.
The best thing about the announcers, they didn't have booths for all of them. And seated randomly right next to the ring is Gene. He's like inches away from the ring. He's practically on the apron in a folding chair doing commentary.
Finally, after 20 minutes, there are 16 men left,
It felt so much longer.
and they get put in one ring. Thank God. Everybody's sweating their balls off. I got to give them credit. They were all working very hard.
They were.
And the funny thing when you watch, the best part of this match, besides all the men coming down to the ring, was to watch the various ways in which people were eliminated. There were guys like the Zodiac, who you think nothing of, who took these giant ass-over-tea kettle flying bumps to the outside. And then other guys like Hawk could not possibly have given a shit less, and they rolled gently to the floor.
Hawks was actually great because he's doing something with, I believe it was Kurosawa, but he's the guy he's working with is on the apron, and Hawks on the inside reaching over, grabbing this dude's arm. And for some reason, it was critical that Hulk Hogan does this elimination. I don't know why they couldn't just go over. But Hulk's not there. And Hawk starts looking around. He can't find Hulk. And finally, Hulk moves into shouting range. And the camera's right there. And Hawk turns back over his shoulder and screams, Terry! So, after,
Orndorff took a goofy bump.
my favorite was actually Booker T.
He rolled and he did a backward shoulder roll, balanced on the guardrail upside down. Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Booker T rolled gently to the apron, placed both feet on the floor, and walked away.
Yep.
Workday done. Clocked out. So the final 10 actually included Eddie Guerrero in 1995.
I wrote that same thing.
Yeah, that was astounding. And they did stuff with him, so it's not like he just happened to be there.
Listen, I got to say something I didn't say last week. I mentioned this on some other show. I don't even know what it was. If you'll recall, in the 90s, there was a famous phrase on the internet, push the cruiserweights.
Yes.
For years, I heard people say, push the cruiserweights. You've got to just push the cruiserweights. It became comedy, this push the cruiserweights deal. When you look at Raw today, where 95% of the roster is a mid-card nothing geek, and you look back to the first, now 13 editions of Nitro or whatever it is, and you've got Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, and these cruiserweights, keep in mind, this is a 1-hour show. This is not a 3-hour show. They've got 42 minutes every Monday night. And these goddamn cruiserweights are on every last single show. Here's Eddie here in the main event of the World War III pay-per-view. He's one of the last 10 guys in a 60-man battle royal. Benoit's a member of the Four Horsemen. You look back now and push the cruiserweights is hilarious. The cruiserweights are more over and bigger stars than 95% of the WWE roster nowadays. It's crazy. And back then, they weren't getting their just desserts.
Yeah. So it came down to a final 6 of Hogan and Savage, Luger and Sting, Giant, and the One-Man Gang. So they kind of paired off with each pair of baby faces working over one of the big fellas.
The OMG.
The Moon, as Gary Hart called him. And Sting and Luger are trying to get Giant out when Hogan runs over and dumps out all 3 of them.
What a dick. Him and John Cena should be a team.
And I actually almost called it Big Show. Giant reached under the ropes, grabbed Hogan's boot, and dragged him to the floor. And they kept on brawling. And Savage, in a spot that was not shown on camera, eliminated the one-man gang. And somehow, even though the match had started with 60 men, and the first 58 eliminations went off without a hitch, and even though guys like Luger and Flair and Arn had all been brawling on the floor and leaving the ring back and forth without a problem, and everyone saw this, somehow when it got down to 6, everyone missed Hulk Hogan going under the bottom rope.
No, they saw him going under the bottom rope.
The announcers did. The referees did not.
Oh, that was the point.
I realized that. That's awful.
That's your problem with the match?
Among them. Yes.
Listen, this finish was actually a great finish if you want to try to set up a program. Because Hulk Hogan got pulled under the bottom rope. The referee didn't see it. The referee only saw Randy Savage left in the ring. So he raised Savage's hand and he gave him the championship. And Hogan was so pissed off that he had not really been eliminated. And by the way, nice to see a guy who actually cares about not getting the title. Hogan was ready to cry again like he did in 1988 when he was fucked by Earl Hebner. So anyway, Hulk Hogan is outraged. And it's good booking to set up a Hogan-Savage program. And actually a Savage-Luger program as well because Luger pinned him earlier. But so hilarious that Hulk Hogan loses the title on a DQ at Halloween Havoc. And then he comes back to the World War III show, and he can't even be thrown over the top rope.
No.
He's got to be screwed both times. It's hilarious.
So they do the obvious post-match where Savage is victorious, but he has to tell Hulk, I didn't see what happened. I don't know how you were eliminated. Hulk is saying, well, watch the film, watch the video, you'll see.
The film.
They said both film and videotape. Mm-hmm. So they do this for several minutes to establish what happened. And by the way, when Savage was finally announced as the winner, because there was confusion with the referees too, they announced he was the winner, gave him the belt, raised his hand, and people booed because they knew this was bullshit. So, but after all of this, emotions start to settle. Everyone calms down a bit. Now think about going back and watching Hulk Hogan like we watched. He was always the big hero. When you actually watch him, he was kind of a dick.
Yes.
When he fought Ric Flair, he would attack Sherry. No problems putting his hands on a woman. He would use back rakes. He would use eye rakes. He would choke. He would use weapons. He was not always a Boy Scout. So when this finally settled down, Hulk took a step back and thought, I have been screwed. But my friend here has just won the World Heavyweight Championship. And he embraced Savage and raised his hand. It was like the biggest babyface moment of his career.
It was up there.
It was like the one time
when he screwed over the Warrior.
When he acted noble here. Even though he had completely been screwed, he was able to momentarily put that aside and congratulate his friend.
That's right.
It was astounding.
I like how animated Hogan was when he was pleading his case.
Yes.
That he had got under the bottom rope. He got down on 2 separate occasions and slid himself out underneath the bottom rope and begging and pleading for the ref to listen to him. There wasn't a person in that building who couldn't figure out what Hogan was
He did it even better in the main event of Nitro. It's funny because when you watch him, John Cena does the exact same thing. Except Hogan is even a bigger cartoon.
Yeah.
They do the same over-exaggerated looking around mannerisms and the big hands and the pantomiming. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious how alike they are. In terms of being a dick as well, I might add, this past week.
So, I did not hate this nearly as much as you guys did.
I didn't hate it. It was just...
It was a chaotic mess for the first...
long, funny battle royal.
It was very, very long. A lot of stuff was missed. It could have been done a lot better. But the one thing I will say, that crowd had a ball.
Oh, yeah.
This crowd was into everything. And boy, because I watched Raw first. Maybe that's why I didn't hate this as much. I watched Raw and then immediately started watching World War III. My God, this is so much better. I had fun watching World War III.
It was amazing how crazy the fans were going the entire time. Can you imagine if we had a 35-minute battle royal on Raw? The crowd reactions during that thing, it would be a complete disaster. I'm not talking the Royal Rumble, everybody. I'm talking a random battle royal. But man, these fans were having such a great time watching this, and who knows what they could even see? Like, you couldn't see anything. But there was chaos in front of them, and so they loved it.
There was large men hitting each other and shouting and sweating and grunting and slamming, and it's all we want from wrestling.
Slobbering, I might add.
Probably a lot of slobbering, too.
All right, let's jump to Nitro. Yes, Craig?
Just make sure you ask Lance about the World War III show.
Oh, I will.
I'm sure he was not a fan.
No.
Though, did you watch the whole show? Or just the Battle Royal?
Just a battle royal. I didn't, like I said.
How could he not like this action?
It was
And this
such
grand storytelling.
It was such a spectacle for the first, 2 minutes. And then it got dumb.
Yes.
It was
I
very
won't argue
long.
with that. It looked like a badly edited highlight reel.
Yeah.
When's the last 35-minute highlight reel
Well,
you've seen?
He said badly edited.
That's a good point. All right, Nitro.
That's unedited.
So the announcers talked about the fallout from Randy Savage's title win, and this was, a show that was on pay-per-view. And in 1995, except for those lucky few who had CompuServe, this may have been news to people that Randy Savage was world champion. Bobby Heenan was waving a Japanese flag because he's doing the thing with Sonny Ono.
Did you also notice him scratching his eyebrows with his middle finger and then pointing at the camera?
No.
Numerous times.
I did not notice that. So they showed Hogan's promo lighting the black gear on fire. They did not show anything with the Observer, nor did they show Sting's hand blowing off. DDP versus Johnny B. Bad. Kimberly was in Bad's corner. Apparently she left Paige at the pay-per-view. So Johnny B. Bad comes out, and at this point he has a hot girl, he has a big giant robe, he has a confetti gun, and he has frisbees that he throws out to the crowd.
And the championship.
And a television championship. Many gimmicks for this guy. So Paige comes out. He looks very, very sad. He has a bouquet of flowers.
He looked dejected.
This man was
The
hurting.
one time in his life.
Yeah.
And he gave flowers to Kimberly, and this confused her, and it confused Bad, and then Paige sucker punched him because he's a dick. So they're doing the match.
I love how he sucker punches Johnny B. Bad, and Kimberly has to rush out of the ring. But you make sure to bring the flowers.
Yeah,
Hey, those are important to a girl.
Oh, yeah.
I have heard that as well. So the whole match is shot. They're shooting Kimberly with the flowers on the floor, and the match is going on in the background.
You know what's funny is I was mostly watching Kimberly because she's hot, and you couldn't not watch her because she's right there in front of the thing. But I was also paying attention to the match in the background, and it was like these two guys were trying so hard to have a good television match, and nobody was watching except me 20 years later.
Yes. So Kimberly is examining the flowers, and she finds inside, I don't think this is common in flowers, but a large, heavy chain.
Well, only if you get them in the prison.
I guess. She didn't know what to do. And then when
Boy, did she ever not know what to do. She was like Britney in TNA.
she was green. This is green Kimberly. So when the time was right, Paige calls for the chain. Kimberly throws it into the ring, but it throws very, very low, and the chain goes between Paige's legs to Bad. And the ref is distracted by Kimberly, and Bad picks up the chain. He bonks Paige with it, and he gets the pin. And so it's not clear to anyone. Did she screw up, or was she trying to throw the Paige to Bad? And Bad rolls outside.
You mean the chain?
What did I say? The Paige?
You said the Page to Bad.
Who did she throw the chain to? This is what who was she
Yes.
trying to get the chain to? This is
I
the
see.
question. And Bad rolls outside, and Bad is among those asking this question. Were you trying to throw that to me? He says. And her response was, it doesn't matter. You're still the champ. And Bad says, you're right.
That was exactly what happened.
He was all happy.
Yep. This was such simplistic storytelling.
Yes.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
I thought it was creative.
It was completely ridiculous that he suspects something, and she just goes, who cares? You won. She doesn't even admit. She doesn't admit to wrongdoing, and she doesn't lie.
No.
She just
It doesn't matter.
deflects the question, and then he's happy. You're right. I've got a gold belt.
He judged the results, not the process.
Yes.
And that's why a pretty girl can say anything, and you'll just go and go along with it.
Okerlund interviewed Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy Hart.
Don't look at me like that, Barry.
So Sullivan was mad at Hart because he didn't know why Hart... I guess Hart at some point started managing Luger. And Luger is friends with Sting, so Sullivan wanted to know if they could trust Luger and why did Luger not finish off Randy Savage before the Battle Royal when he had the chance. And Hart assured him that he, Luger, and Sting had a plan, and Sullivan's eyes lit up. He seemed to get what Hart was getting at. He started laughing, and he left quite happy. Kyuni Suzuki and Mayumi Izaka versus Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto in a great match. God, this was awesome.
There was an amazing amount of yelling and shrieking in this match.
The only way I could describe this earlier was to say it was, in fact, a Japanese women's pro wrestling match on Nitro.
Yes.
Lots and lots of action. Lots and lots and lots of screaming.
Bull Nakano, looking back, you remember Bull Nakano as like a big bull of a woman?
Sure.
She wasn't that big.
No.
I would bet you anything that Havoc in TNA is much bigger than Bull Nakano. Awesome Kong, obviously, was significantly bigger.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you two are aware of this. Craig clearly isn't because he's safe search is always on. Bull Nakano got really hot, even as of a few years ago. She lost a ton of weight.
Didn't she take up become a pro golfer?
I don't know. I think
One of the Japanese women from this era got into pro golf.
Sure. But anyway, she became very good looking. And they had a hell of a match. She appeared to blow out her knee in the middle of it. And the most amazing thing about this match was how the fans were totally into it. And these were women they didn't even know.
Yeah.
Think about when you watch Raw nowadays, and you've got all of these women that people actually do know, and they don't give a shit about their matches.
Or men they do know.
4 random Japanese women having a match on Nitro, and the people were into every bit of it. What a charming time.
This was great. It was all action, back and forth pretty much constantly. The Hokuto and Nakano made a great team because they were very different. And after, like I said, lots and lots of action, Hokuto grabs one of the baby faces. I won't lie. I don't know which is which. But she hit a Fisherman Buster of Death. Just planted her right on top of her head. And got the pin. An awesome match. And I like to think at the end was, that woman once wrestled for Tulalip Championship Wrestling. How? How did that happen?
I made the exact same mistake.
Akira Hokuto?
Is that who you're thinking of?
Oh, it was Malia Saka.
I did the exact same thing.
I'll edit that out, please.
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah,
I was so completely baffled for about 10 seconds right
I knew
there.
exactly where he was going. I didn't want to stop him.
I don't get embarrassed very often. I'm pretty embarrassed right now.
You know what?
I'll pay you to edit that out.
We'll talk.
I had totally forgotten the All Japan women were even on Nitro. And they went out there and tore it up. Like you said, nobody knew who they were. And by the end of the show, by the end of the match, you did. They were awesome.
Or you didn't.
Or you didn't. And you wanted to see it again.
Let's move on, Vinny.
Right. Hulk Hogan wrestled Hugh Morris.
Or humorous, as Bobby Heenan made sure to say.
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan even was about to say humorous, and he stopped himself to say humorous.
Yes.
Yes. So they had every Hulk Hogan TV match ever.
I couldn't believe that I was watching Hugh Morris against Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point, I glossed over this, but in the Battle Royal, Hulk Hogan was selling for one of the Barrio brothers. my mind basically broke. I cannot accept this.
They had a competitive match.
They had
Hugh Morris was so incredibly light with Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Barely touched the guy. This man is now a head trainer in WWE Developmental in 2014.
I thought the exact same thing.
Hugh Morris.
He was the jerk on the Tough Enough show.
And to this day.
Right. And I was thinking, that's the head trainer?
That's the head trainer, buddy.
Yeah.
And you know why now when you saw him working so nice and light with Hulk
Did
Hogan.
an awesome job.
Yeah. So Hogan gave him like 2 minutes of offense, kicked out of his finish, did the Hulk Hogan comeback and won.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Oakland brought out Savage for an interview.
In between this, they mentioned that the replay of World War III would be the next day. Make sure to set your VCRs.
Yes. Let's see. Savage came out for an interview. He's just talking about how he was happy to be world champion, but if Hogan had a problem, they could settle it right now. So Hogan came out to settle it right now. They showed the video from World War III, but right at the moment Giant was going to pull Hogan out, the screen went to static.
Man, the old snow.
And all I could think was, there was no other way for Randy Savage to watch this video, and he had not taken the time to watch it in the
No, he'd have to
24
wait
hours.
till the next day to set his VCR for the replay.
No one in the production truck had it queued up.
All I could think was, if only the internet was as powerful as Hulk Hogan had claimed in his promo the night before, they wouldn't have this problem.
That's right. It'd be on vines everywhere.
It'd be digital.
So,
Fucking analog tapes.
So, as the argument continued, Giant ran out and attacked both men. He chokeslammed Randy Savage on the floor, and he protected Savage as best he could, but that was still awfully brutal.
Not only that, can you imagine trusting a guy as green as the Giant? You forget how green the Giant is because he's been so great.
Yeah.
But this guy had been in the business for a hiccup. And you're Macho Man Randy Savage. And you're like, sure, chokeslam me here on the ramp, on the cement as they called it. But hey, the guy did the best he could. Still looked like it sucked.
Yeah, Savage took the bump on his left side not to hurt the arm.
Good God.
Of course, Dave didn't know what he was talking about.
Of course not. So Sting comes out, and anyway, they have this whole schmoz, and Hulk Hogan gets a chair, and the funniest thing is the chair shots that Hulk Hogan is hitting the Giant with.
Yes.
These chair shots would have cured a concussion.
He starts hitting him in the back, and there are chair shots to the back. He's hitting a guy. And then Giant turns around, and yes, you've never seen anything so gentle in a wrestling encounter. Just a little tap. Over and over again.
It was like Lance Storm was throwing the chair.
It's amazing, actually, that...
Lance Storm looked like Balls Mahoney compared to Hulk Hogan when he swung this chair.
Yes. Lance was Masato Tanaka compared to Peace. It's just... So, yeah. And the Giant ran away, and Hogan and Sting tended to Savage. And that was that. Main event, Sting and Luger versus Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman. So the whole gimmick for the whole show has been, what's up with Sting and Luger's relationship? Are they really friends? Can they trust each other? So Sting comes out, and then there's about 30 seconds of dead air and no Luger. And the announcers go off, aha, it's true, he can't trust him. And then Luger walks out, and then Luger's music plays. And I think they just forgot to play Luger's music, and it just fit in with the storyline perfectly. So they're doing this tag match, and this was a bad day for Lex Luger. And a bad day for Lex Luger is bad indeed. His timing was off on everything. He was blowing spots with the Horseman. They're trying to do the same spot 2 or 3 times and not getting it right. It's pretty amazing, honestly. So they got the heat on Sting, and then, like, everything happens at once. Sting pins Pillman with a roll-up, Arn hits Sting with a DDT, and Ric Flair zooms in and attacks Luger. So the Horsemen are beating up both guys. Hogan comes out to make the save. They did the spot where Flair takes Hogan to the corner and throws one chop, and Hogan no-sells it and does the big bug-eyed stare. That will never, ever, ever get old. And finally the Horsemen are run off, and Hogan checks on Sting, and then he goes to attack Luger, but Sting grabs Hogan's arm, Luger bails, Hogan is pissed, but after some conversation, Sting calms him down and they shake hands. And then the announcers wrapped up the show. I love the show. It's the best thing I watch every week.
You know what I liked about this was they did that big spot where Sting has a scorpion, Luger pushes Pillman off the top, Pillman bonks into Sting, blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of like, every time I watch one of these WCW shows, they have one creative spot somewhere. And meanwhile, I watch Raw, and it's the exact same fucking spots on every show.
Yeah.
The 2 tag team partners that don't like each other, one guy steals a pin. The long match with the bullshit DQ finish. All of these, I see them over and over again. And every time I watch one of these shows, there's something new. There's something different. Like, why can't we have that again? Am I asking too much to have just something different on every show? Luger was horrendous, but it was hilarious to watch him running around ringside outside. He's like sprinting, like his football career is back in full force. He's running and sprinting, and as soon as he tags in, though, glacial speed. He's so slow in the ring. Flair's the biggest babyface on the show. This is fun.
So to recap, Luger hates Sting.
No.
We don't know what's going on.
Sting and Luger are friends.
Yes.
Sting and Hogan are friends.
Yes.
But now Hogan is a little suspicious of Sting.
No, Hogan trusts Sting, but he thinks Sting is making a mistake trusting Luger. It's not black and white, but nor is it shades of gray. Because relationships are complicated. Sometimes your friend is a friend, and you hate your friend's friend.
Aha.
Not saying anything about anyone in
I was
this room.
going to say, is this... Are we talking about this room or what's happening here?
I'm not talking about this room at all.
So
God
we both hate
damn
Brian,
it.
right?
Yeah, I'll try.
The point is,
Let's move on.
speaking of, to wrap it up, why can't we have more wrap-up shows in wrestling today as well? Where the announcers just stop and they explain the most important points, what we need to know, and what's coming up next week.
We got to be left with a cliffhanger.
I want that, and I also want I want the show to start with the announcers letting us know what we're going to watch. I know I make fun of it when they run down the pay-per-view card on the pay-per-view, but just give me, the announcers saying here. It doesn't have to be long, but explain what's on tap. Let me know there's been some planning on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up. Anybody have any plugs they want to get out there? All right. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.